Welcome back after the break. I see I have the difficult time slots always after the big happenings, so I hope you're ready to go. It will be a little bit easier program than in the morning. I want to show you a tool that we are using and that is quite useful. It has nothing to do with Silverstripe at all, but I will show it on using a Silverstripe page. I just got inspired by yesterday's talk and just installed DDEV and tried to get a running Silverstripe page, and it's really easy. Thank you very much. I guess I will use it more often. I would like to show you a tool for visual regression tests. It's called BackstopJS. Is anybody familiar with it? Nobody? That's great. Okay, so I can tell you anything. Okay, good. What is it about? It's comparing web pages by making screenshots before and after a change. A change can be, well, an actual change or an update or a rollout, whatever. So you can find problems with your web page. So let's just dive in. I have the default page here, and I have some project prepared. Let's start with installing it. They recommend that you install it globally. I will just do that for the sake of the demo. And BackstopJS, as I've already said, is for visual regression tests. And I will start with the init, backstop init. It creates a demo backstop.json file that defines what should be tested. In this case, I'll just give you a short tour. The ID is okay, that's just for referencing it. You define viewports that are interesting to you. That can be a phone, a tablet, a desktop, whatever. We typically use 2 or 3 widths that are critical for the rendering. You can define scripts that run before and after taking a screenshot, and we'll come to this a little bit later. And then you have scenarios, and we will test, I would say we'll test the homepage. So I just copy it over here. And there are many possibilities to configure this, but I will just leave it the default, duplicate the scenario, and I will copy another subpage just so that we see how this is working. And since this is the first time that I'm using this tool, I need to create a reference screenshot. So that's the baseline, okay? So I call backstop reference, and what it does is it starts headless Chromium and creates screenshots. It depends on the complexity of your page and page speed and so on, how long it takes for running. But in this simple scenario, it's just 4 seconds. Okay, we're developers, so just have a look what has happened. There is a backstop data file. There are bitmap references. It has created, okay, it has only created 2 of them. Maybe I've done something wrong, but it doesn't matter. We can also show it with 1 page. And now let's change something. And I thought it would be nice to change the font size of the paragraphs. And normally I would expect that the font size of the paragraphs just changed, but maybe it has some unwanted side effect, and that's what it's all about, find changes that you don't want to have. So I could refresh here, and I see that has changed more than just the paragraph. Something here over there has changed, but just let the tool find it. So I've had reference, and now I'm calling test, wrong direction. And now it does the same. It creates screenshots, and then it compares them. And I got this overview, and I can see 0 of the test cases passed. So obviously I have changed something on all pages. 4 have failed. And yes, and I can have a look here, and I see that the text size has changed. There's the reference and the test. I can switch here. I have a slider to show before and after, or I have this diff view where I see in a purple where something has changed. So that's it from what it can do. I want to show you some real-world examples so that you see how we're using it and what it can bring. For example, that's one of our customer web pages, and we've made some planned change, and we wanted to make sure that it has really no side effects. and 37 pages were not up to it. And let's have a look if this is the change that we wanted to make. And by showing you some of the examples, I will also show you what you have to consider when using this tool. So I can click on this div, so I'm in the div mode, and the image has moved, and the button at the bottom has moved. Actually, that's not a bug because there's an animation, so the image moves and the button moves as well. So this is something that you have to consider when you're taking screenshots. If you want to really make it properly, you should disable animations by calling some JavaScript function before taking the screenshot, for example, or setting some CSS class. Okay, let's look on. So there's nothing purple, so this looks good. Here is some change. Again, I can switch between reference and test. And you see the actual change that we rolled out was a little bit, I suppose, 2 pixels less margin before and after the orange line. So that's expected. You also see a limitation of this tool, as we have lost some pixels in height at this point. Everything below is also shifted. So this is also a change. There has been some effort to make it that it can detect such cases and shift it, so that is working better. If you really want to deal with this, you can also select divs or container elements and only screenshot them and compare them. So if you're using something like Elemental for content blocks, you could really compare single blocks to each other. It needs a little bit more configuration, but it's not that much. Okay, something else. Yeah, for example, that's the desktop version, same issue at the top. The animation is randomized, so it looks different. Here looks everything fine. And here we have a change, and it's again what we expected. So this is, well, quite good. There's nothing that we haven't expected to change. Okie dokie, let's move to another example. Another thing that you have to consider is when you have lazy loading images, like here, the image might be loaded when you take the screenshot, or it might not be loaded. There are different approaches to deal with it. You can load all images, wait for this, and take the screenshot afterwards. This is slower. Or you can, well, ignore it or remove the images altogether if you think that's not something that you need to check. Depends on what you prefer. Then there was this change. Let's have a look what has happened. Again, some margin has changed. And, well, that's all unexpected change. So it really helps us if we change some CSS and it has a side effect on a page we haven't considered. So in these cases, this can really help you. You have the possibility to run it on a dev environment, of course, but you have also the possibility to run 2 different URLs. So you can make the reference from your production website and run it against your dev website. This is easily configurable. Well, keep in mind if the content isn't the same, well, it's also a change, so that won't work properly. So what else has changed on this page? Well, sometimes you will have issues, you cannot be absolutely sure what happened. So obviously there is a little change in this image. Maybe the image was changed by one of the editors between the both runs, or it is a slight difference in rendering. It is obviously so that sometimes the rendering of browsers can differ between screenshots, or maybe Chromium was updated between the 2 runs. There can be some minor issues. But in most cases, it's working properly. Here's another interesting change. In the original version, there were the points of interest not rendered yet, and in the test version, they were just going to fade in. So this is also a difference. So it's a really picky tool, but in most cases, it's, yeah. Oh, yeah. At the bottom, again, some images haven't loaded yet. Okay. You see these are all PNG files here. You can change this to JPEG, which is a good idea because it saves a lot of space on your disk, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's just not working properly. On the one hand, you have JPEG compression artifacts that might be a difference, and it is not really working properly in the tool itself because there are some parts where it assumes it's a PNG and it's not working properly with a JPEG. It's a really dubious error, so don't try it. I've tried it and debugged it for hours, and then I found out it's okay, it's because it's a JPEG. So I would like to save this. Okay, and I suppose I have one more case. We have some WordPress customer websites, well, don't blame us, and we update them regularly, and when doing such an update, sometimes things might change, so a label is suddenly in German and not in English and not in German, which is in our case not preferable, so we use it also for this. Okay, it's not a perfect test, but it can find some issues. So for example, when I look on this page, you can see at the bottom, there has something moved, some pixel. And another thing that has changed over here, it's not, with the naked eye you almost don't see it, it's a pixel shift. I suppose that the font was updated in the theme update, and if the font changes, there can be small differences in rendering as well. And this gives us, well, supports us in finding out if there's an actual change or something that we need to correct. There's a field label that has changed, might be even also through the update. Yeah, you can render the screenshots also using Docker containers so that you don't have to run it on your computer locally. I haven't used it, but I suppose it's working properly as well. Keep in mind that if you're having something like a data privacy consent management tool, a consent manager, you will like to remove the pop-up before taking the screenshots. Otherwise, well, you won't be able to get meaningful screenshots. I will show you what is possible for this. There are some, I've already shown you this before. It's the onBefore and the onReady script. So you have here onBefore and the onReady script. You could manipulate the page here using a Puppeteer methods, for example, removing the div, calling some JavaScript function that gives a consent, and so on. Another thing that you should keep in mind is if you have some full screen elements, it can be a little bit tricky to get good screenshots with full screen elements that have 100 VH or that are fixed positions, sticky positions. Sometimes this doesn't work properly. It can help to set some additional class or to limit some height of elements if you have such a case. But in most cases, it's quite simple. Yeah, last thing I want to show you. This BackstopJS isn't that verbose, but it can be quite verbose. We have pages, websites where we test, 50 to 100 pages. We've written a small wrapper that allows us to define these scenarios in one place. So we have a list of URLs, and they are all tested in the same way. And this can be, this allows us to make it a little bit easier. If you want to, we have already tried this. You can also scrap the page so that you get all the links that are on the home page and automatically check all pages that are linked, so you don't even have to compile your list manually. That is quite convenient. Main issue is if you have really a lot of pages and a lot of viewport sizes, it can take some time, maybe some minutes, depending on your setup. Yeah. There is even more information on the website, especially also if you want to trigger some interactions. For example, you could open something, click a button, open a menu, whatever, and you can test this as well. From my point of view, it's a good thing if you want to cover your bases. So you just make a screenshot of the whole page without interaction. You can get it running in a few minutes, and it will save you for at least for some simple problems. And if you're really into it and want to check more, you can go into further detail. Are there any questions? Andy, and
bring you the mic.
Thank you for your talk. And I knew that these tools exist, but I don't understand how you use it in the deployment process. I'm used to snapshot tests where you check in the snapshot and then you compare it before you check in. But how do you do this? This looks like you have a separate repository where you make tests just manually. Of course, it's manual, but independent of the deployment.
Okay, also the tool is also meant to be used in a deployment process automatically. You can get a response that you can parse and process. We use it separately, so I have a separate repository where I keep screenshots of the web pages we're working on, and we often use it to make an update, so make a screenshot, make the update, make screenshots again, compare them, and if everything is fine, we will release it. So yeah, it's more, from my point of view, it's a more manual tool than something that is integrated in a deployment process automatically.
Hey, great talk. I had the same question, but with a slightly different nuance. Are you using it primarily as a smoked? Like, do you want to know what's wrong or that it's not ready for production? Right. So how are you using it primarily?
Well, it depends. If we make an update where I don't expect any change, it's quite simple. If it everything
Because it can have false negatives, as you mentioned, right? It's because of the animation, because of the So
we use it totally manually, so I'm okay with this. I have a look and I see, okay, the map wasn't fully loaded, it's fine.
Yeah.
If I would like to automate it more or have less thinking, I would say, okay, let's add a delay of, 2 seconds before I take the screenshot, or wait for some JavaScript event when the map is loaded, or load all images. Then it would be much better and it would have less false positive or false negative, how you ever call it.
I know this pattern as nullable architecture, where you have essentially snapshot tests going out to production, then coming back down to the version control system. It's quite a complex workflow. So if I were to do that and automate it, how does a developer know that the snapshots that are in version control need to be regenerated? Because then, is it like one person pressing the button and then all of them go poof and then all of them get restored? Or am I now have to manually cater, each seed or each fixture? How do you, is this meant to be for a smaller project, for a smaller scope of complexity? What are your recommendations?
I would say the process is that you test, and if you're fine with the changes, you can approve them. This is backstop approve, and then these are the new reference files. And you can also say, okay, only these 3 files are the new reference, and maybe you would commit it with the project. Maybe you have a separate repository.
I see. So then a developer would have to run it first to locally approve it, and then it could go into the automation pipeline.
Yeah,
for regression.
There are different ways to integrate. I can only say we use it quite manually because our scope is that is a good way of working. But they say that it can integrate it in a continuous integration progress as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Who thinks it could be interesting for them? Okay, good.
All right. Any other questions for Stephan?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. A big round of applause for Stephan. Thanks.
Thank you.